Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Mortgage Heroes Weekly Podcast. I'm Andy.
And I'm Brian.
And welcome to 2024. Brian, I'm super excited for today's topics. We have 4 articles on deck.
Let's go.
First one, we got Data Digest coming from Housing Wire. Will work for housing. This one has some interesting stats about housing and affordability.
Yes.
November pending home sales were unchanged despite a sharp decline in mortgage rates from CNBC. Coming in from Housing Wire, we have the housing market finishes strong in 2023 from Altos Research, one of our favorite places for research when it comes to housing and mortgages.
Yes, sir.
And then another one from Housing Wire, what makes Gen Z home buyers different? This is an op-ed, actually, but it actually has some advice, I would say, and some markers that we should talk about when it comes to Gen Z. No cap, all facts. Okay.
100%. It's like you understood exactly what they were saying. Thank you.
That'll be the rizziest part of the show.
Let's go.
Riz. All right, so first article up today is from Housing Wire. It's Data Digest, Will Work for Housing. They released this study the first week of January talking about teacher salaries, and the study comes from Colorado, but there's a trend I want to talk about in this. So let's go over some of what the report said, and then the trend I want everyone to be listening to and listening for is this ain't just teachers. It's one profession that's highlighted in this study, but it is kind of like a reflection and a microcosm of a lot of other industries and jobs that are in that same kind of pay grade that are necessary in a city or a township, that we have to have people who do these sets of things at these incomes, and they cannot afford housing.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's get into the report a little bit. So it says a Colorado teacher making the average salary had $20,000 to put down towards a down payment, and were willing to spend 30% of their pre-tax salary on a mortgage payment, and they could afford a house that cost $225,000 based on their income, which is like around $63,000 in this example. Again, this is an example.
Translate like $52.50 a month.
Here's the problem. It says the typical home is $528,000. So you have an affordability of $225,000, and you have a home price average of $528,000. Now, if you have a second income and you and your spouse make the same amount of money, cool. Maybe you can be touching that $528,000. But let's say you are not. Let's say you're unmarried, you're on your own, and you're a teacher. You aren't buying a house in Colorado. So the report says we have this issue about this one place, and this school district actually went and became basically home builder landlord, and was acquiring properties to convert, bring them back up, and to kind of renovate them, I should say, and so that the teachers would have housing to kind of offset the amount of their salary and what they could afford.
Yeah, I was reading through that, and I thought that was very interesting. And it's like you're essentially going to be, living under your employer's property.
It's like government housing.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought about it. I'm like, and I mean, in some cases, I think it does make a lot of sense because of markets like these that people unfortunately can't afford the price range. But I mean, you take that over here to San Diego. I mean, it's not that far off. I mean, the range of the price, the price points are similarly the same, and the incomes are aren't there to be able to support the price points.
Yeah, proportionately they're relative to San Diego and other top 100 metros. I mean, you forget San Diego and this area in Colorado. Okay, let's talk about Miami. How about LA? What about Dallas?
They all have those exact same jobs,
Chicago,
and those needs. Yeah,
like any major city that you can just rattle off the top of your head, a top 20, top 50, top 100 city in the United States is having some version of this problem to a variety of extremes based on the state and the compensation, all this kind of stuff. So I understand those are all those variables, but my broad concern here is that if teachers can't buy houses for this specific industry and this specific job, then the school districts, they can't hire teachers. But we need those teachers in these communities.
Yes.
So teachers and educators are really important. But how are we going to pay them? And this is kind of like trying to bridge that gap. But you also have to have willing participants. And so I think this is a very interesting, like, social study, if you will.
Yes.
Where, I'm willing to teach because I love teaching. I'm willing to take the salary they offer me, and I'm also willing to make this housing concession, if you will, in order to make that happen.
One thing that came to mind, and I'm sure a lot of people would have this question, so how does it work? If I'm making $63K a year, is that $63K minus the rent that I'm going to be obviously paying right back to the people that are employing me?
Well, it doesn't go like that hard in this article. The point is, to your question, are you making $63,000 and still paying rent? I don't think that's this scenario. I think the scenario is you're being paid $63,000 and you're being compensated by you have a place to live. So if you have a place to live,
you don't have to worry about housing?
Right. That's what I'm saying. There's multiple ways that this is working because it's not the only school district that's doing this.
That makes sense. I follow you now.
And so if they've spent, so in this example, it said they spent $40.8 million over the last 2 years to acquire 52 units and renovate several of the 50 existing units. So if there's no payment, then that person's actually, let's say, taking home $63,000 pre-tax, but they have no housing payment. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is if you have to pay them more, but then they're just offsetting that by paying it back to the school. It's one and the same to a certain degree, and I'm not going to get into the taxation.
Exactly. I didn't want to get into. I guess my biggest point was that I feel for some people it will make sense, and in some places they would like to live, without a payment. But I think that there should be, like a strategic way of going about this. Like if you're going to live in here without having to pay for housing, then at least be able to use some of that money to save up, to not always stay there, to be able to save up comfortably, to then be able to make that jump into your own place that you could buy it yourself.
Well, and here's the thing. This is actually not unlike other corporate housing situations. Right. So this is, it may be, I don't know how many people in our audience know about corporate housing, but in the corporate housing example, let's say you're an executive and you're a mid-level manager or whatever, or higher, and you have a $100,000, $200,000 compensation package that includes housing. Well, if I have to fly Andy from San Diego and you have to take me across the country and I have to go to, let's just say, Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah. A company hires me to go to Nashville, Tennessee. It includes my salary plus a compensation package for housing. And they'll pay for the housing. Okay. So if the corporation owns a house, I may have free housing and I still make all my income that my contract is going to fulfill.
Got it.
So this is not that dissimilar. The difference is it's school districts, not corporations. And school districts are using tax money, bond money, and that kind of thing to meet people and close that gap from the housing opportunities they have as a private citizen with their income.
That makes sense.
To actually helping them. Because again, this goes to this other part. We have this other player in the room, which is you need to be able to attract teachers. You have to get the teachers to your school district, and they have to be able to afford to live somewhere.
No, I did not know that corporate, packages go like that, and that sometimes that the corporation owns the property, so therefore they don't have to pay. I think that's very helpful in the sense that, depending on your job and wherever you're at, that's very helpful because it allows the person to actually do their job to the fullest capacity without worrying about, hey, am I going to have a roof over my head? Now, switching it over to schools and teachers, that I think it really just depends because then a lot of people will start getting into that subject of, well, who's paying for this at the end of the day? We know who's paying for it, but, that's not the point. I think the point is, making it affordable for people to have a base to then be able to jump into home ownership on their own. And even if like the people that live in the corporate housing, I think that goes with their style of life. If they're going to be moving around place to place, then it really doesn't benefit for them to be able to buy a house.
Yeah, and also the other thing,
at least not at that moment.
And there's also I think it's not a commuting thing. It's like being part of a fixture of a community. Yeah, like I know for when I was I'm much older than you, but when I was a kid, a lot of the teachers that worked at the schools I went to, they also lived in the local community within maybe 5 or 10 miles. They weren't commuting 60 miles a day to come and teach 4th grade. They lived down the street or they lived a couple miles away. And also, to go back, I want to make sure I touch back on this before we continue. But so there's that kind of part of it where you're like involved in the community and all that. But another way this is being offered as a solution is they use this Austin example, where in Austin they're using proceeds from a bond to purchase properties and construct affordable housing for teachers and staff. So they're actually using excess from a bond measure and putting it back to you. So and maybe there was a stipulation that they couldn't use $43.9 million to go towards salary or compensation, but they could use it for XYZ, something else. That makes sense. And this was a decision to do that. So that is an interesting solution as well, because that money has to be applied and used somewhere. And this leads to kind of the general idea of this conversation topic for me with you is the Labor Market Institute identifies 473 job classifications as, quote, critical occupations, totaling more than 100 million workers, or roughly 70% of U.S. workers. So that's out of a labor force of like, roughly 150,000 plus or minus a little bit. So that's a lot of people that are in this classification, and critical sounds maybe more critical and dramatic than it is. I don't know what the definition is exactly, but the fact that there's 473 classifications is what caught my eye.
Those people aren't going away. Not anytime soon.
Well, the problem's not going away either.
So it's like, yeah, exactly. I think that's still the underlying problem in a lot of things. It goes back to affordability. Like you can shift it around however you want, but until we actually tackle the root of the problem of how we can make things more affordable, we can put in temporary solutions, temporary band-aids, but until we have an actual solution, I feel that we're still going to be, trying different things like this until we have something that's sustainable. Because overall, I mean, affordability, yeah, rates come down, but then, prices stay the same, and it's like a wheel that you're just kind of turning on, that if like, okay, one thing happens, but then you go back to the other thing, but then that stops, and then it's like, double-edged sword. You never get the end of it.
Well, and you remember there's a lot of people that are new to our show. We've had like tremendous growth through the holidays. Thank you everybody for watching and subscribing. That's been like tremendous. And also the comments too. Like people getting smart up in the comments, and I love it. And I love engaging with people and seeing the responses and seeing our corporate responses to that and our personal responses. But here's my point. If you missed some of the early shows in 2023, Brian, myself, and William sat around. We talked about the housing market and agencies coming up with creative solutions for problems in the market. And that's shown up in a variety of ways. In one conversation, we're talking about the 2-1 buy down, the 3-1 buy down, the 1-1 buy down. Another conversation, we're talking about California releasing funds to provide grants for you to get some money to do permitting and other soft costs for your ADU.
Yep.
And then now we're talking about this, where school districts are getting involved and in being landlords or basically homeowners, if you will, to house their employees. So is this just going to be a continuation of this? I mean, this one is new to me. I had not heard about this, but the way it's referenced in this article is that it has been going on. It's not entirely a novel thing. It's new to me.
It's not very new to me. I've heard,
it's not entirely novel
lives,
to these areas, but they're citing two areas that we all know, with Austin and Aspen. And, those are cities that are definitely more expensive. Yep. But even if you take some, let's say, lower tier cities, they're going to have the same problem. We're still talking about roughly 100 million people who are in this classification. You take out Austin, Aspen, San Francisco, New York, LA.
Metropolises that are freaking filled with these problems.
Fine, okay. Maybe it's not 100 million. Maybe it's still 60 million.
And these are some of the less critical ones. Like we're not talking about a big city like Los Angeles. We're not talking about a big city like New York. Like what are those numbers looking like?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what I mean?
So it got me thinking.
If this is just based off of, Aspen and Austin, like I really want to see the actual big producing markets that we see, where they are with this, because it starts with like, okay, if in those big cities they can't control those problems, then what's going to happen? People are going to start spreading out to other cities. And if, eventually you leave, like it's just like I said, moving it around to somewhere else until that place gets too expensive.
But look, if you want to get like super nuanced about it, from my perspective, it's a math problem. It's a math problem because it's an affordability issue that's being caused by pricing, math, affordability, all that kind of stuff, right? I said affordability like 3 times right there. But this is saying that half of those essential workers make less than the average Aspen teacher's salary that was used in this study. They were using a $63,000 salary for this study. And so they're saying half of these essential workers, these 100 million,
make
less than 50 million, make less than that. So I'm talking about this being a much bigger problem than just this little thing. Like I read this article talking about this one little city, this one little school district, this other area in Austin, this excess bond. But when you take the 30,000 foot view of this is a much, much bigger problem.
So what happens when you can't pay for anything anymore and they can't afford it?
You're destined to just be perpetual renters, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, I think the other unfortunate moving variable here is just cost of living. You have general cost of living that is outside the school district's control too. School districts don't control the price of eggs or the price of fuel or the price of milk and whatever you're spending money on. They
Services,
don't control
everything you got to pay a month. Yeah,
utility costs, your cell phone bill, all that stuff. So there's always going to be a level of like personal agency that you're responsible for running a good personal budget. But at the same time, you can run a solid budget, bulletproof, and prices still go up on you.
So it's exactly what we talked about in past shows, where the salary stays fixed, but the costs don't stay fixed. And when the costs go up and you're at a fixed salary, what do? You have to incur more debt, figure something out, or somehow just get through it.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, that we're having this conversation. Later on this week, we have a show coming out with our friend Carlo Diaz.
Yeah,
and Carlo Diaz, we had this conversation.
He used a $15 California burrito, and that in itself said a lot.
Right. So Carlo Diaz is our friend with Old Harbor Insurance, and he's on our show coming up on Friday. The Friends of Mortgage Heroes, and we talked about this, where even from an insurance perspective, the cost to replace and all the variety of reasons why inflation is so high on the insurance side, they're not able to even catch up with that.
It just doesn't make sense for them.
They're chasing it all the time, and as consumers in this kind kind of situation where we're looking at these types of volumes of people, they're clearly chasing everything all the time.
Yeah.
So, as far as solutions are concerned, this one seems like it's a palatable one. I can totally digest the concept.
Yeah.
I don't know what it looks like. I'm talking to you guys about a piece of paper and an article I found on the internet that we could talk about that seems interesting and might have a solution embedded in it that can spread. That's why I chose this one, is I think this could actually be used in other areas that would actually alleviate some of the problem people are having on their own.
So I brought an example from here, which one of my buddies actually works for Facebook, and he's up in LA. Facebook, well, he told me that just in the area that he lives, it was Facebook, I believe, Google, and Apple. Big tech companies came down here in LA area, and I want to say the urban area, and they bought a little area of communities, right? And in those apartment complexes or communities, it's owned by only Google, Facebook, or big tech companies. Same thing. They pay for their salary. They basically work out of there, and all their work stuff is inside their house because they're not working remote. So I didn't know that that's how it extended to other companies as well. I mean, those big tech companies had I remember that he was living in San Francisco. Same thing, was getting paid by a tech company. And like now, when they moved down to to Los Angeles, he brought that up, and I saw it in an article where it says that they already are doing it. And it brought to me that the Tesla, they build that little like community out in Texas, and all their workers work there because why? Because the factory's there. It's easy for them to stay there. They don't have to commute far, and it's easier, I bet, for Elon or Tesla to be able to, hey, I'd rather have you guys all working here, know that you guys are going to show up, be reliable.
Cool. Well, I mean, and in the end, like, so as a private company, it becomes an asset. But I think as a school district, it's a publicly held asset, because if it's bond measure money and it's tax money that's actually buying these, it's going to be the school district or the city. Let's say the city of Chula Vista bought a bunch of houses. It'd be Chula Vista owning the houses still.
Right. What I would like to see that it'd be, and I don't know how this would actually pan out, but it'd be very beneficial. And I'd like to see something like, hey, if we are going to take on this, these assets, and it's publicly owned, how can we make this work for the community around? So it's like, how can we utilize this tool and asset to be able to flourish and grow our community as a whole? Like if they are going to start taking down properties, maybe some of those properties can be affordable housing for certain people inside the community. So things like that I would like to see. And if they are going to be doing it for profit, put that, profit back into,
it's got to at least cover. It can't be a sinkhole.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Like if it's not getting paid, how is it going to get paid one way or another? So there has to be some sort of like, hey, for sure it's going to get paid, because what if we go into, let's say, some sort of financial crisis that's huge on all sorts? What if now the own government or who owns the properties can't pay anymore?
Well, again, I think this is very nuanced. It depends on whether the city owns it or the school district somehow is holding it, or even how much it's financed. It may not be financed at all. If you're using bond measure money, that's already money in the kitty, and you're just spending, just think of it like cash. If you're just spending it like cash, you're spending it like cash. But also, there's other people's money. So if I have a bond measure that's got all this cash and I can leverage against it to borrow the money, then maybe you're in a borrowing situation and you're holding on to a lot of cash, and you can use that for your maintenance and your overhead and your recurring costs, that kind of thing. So I don't know how they're playing it on the financial side.
And I'm just kind of spitballing here from all different angles.
I know, but I think that the point in discussing this is important, because I know on the horizon for us, even ending 2023, we're looking at like, hey, look, this is not going to change. Housing is going to remain unaffordable for a lot of people, because even though mortgage rates have come down, demand came back, some sellers came off of the fence, and you're going to see prices remain the same in most places. There is not a free fall of home prices. There was a lull of sellers putting homes on the market. We saw less units for sale, but we did not see dramatic price drops in the major metropolitan cities in the United States.
And I think, there's an article that we're going to go over that we had a 3% growth year over year for home prices.
On the West Coast, it's like 4.2% in the final quarter of the year.
And home prices still haven't dropped. So what that means is that even after we had high interest rates all last year, less buyers, less competition, less movement in the market, homes still went up. And I don't care if it's, 0.5%, it still went up. So regardless, 3%, you gain an equity overall on average. So it's like, regardless of, what the market was, real estate still showed positive gains.
Yeah. And you're going to see more people
whether
come off
big
the
or
fence.
Not,
and I think that, kind of, I know we're leading into that conversation a little bit, but, prices are going to remain the same. You see mortgage rates holding. We're in an election cycle year. No one wants to rock the boat for the negative. So if there is any direction in rates, it's going to get better. But again, that then comes with prices going back up and more demand coming back. There's supply of homes
to the hamster wheel.
Yeah. Houses take time to build. You can't just order one on Amazon. It shows up tomorrow on Prime on a truck.
You can't?
Well, wait, no. You could tiny home, man. Maybe. Not a, hey, go to Home Depot. They sell homes now, too.
Hey, they're going to start listing those very soon.
Yeah, Home Depot. keep. I'm just gonna go to the Home Depot parking lot and like put a welcome
Open
home
house,
mat,
open house.
I'm just gonna live in that thing. Hey, there's like I got a whole parking lot in my front yard.
Hey, what do you guys need? Huh?
All right,
I got houses.
Next article up today, we got November pending home sales were unchanged despite a sharp drop in mortgage rates. This coming in from CNBC. Quick 2 bullet points. Pending home sales in November were unchanged compared with October and 5.2% lower than November of last year. Now, that's 2023 compared to 2022.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is according to NAR. The average rate on 30-year fixed mortgage soared to 8% in mid-October, but then dropped sharply to 7.5% the first week of November, and then even more, and now solidly kind of in that 6% range, and even sometimes below 6 if you're in certain government territories. As far as government loans are concerned. So November having unchanged number of sales compared to October, but less than 2022 means to me that the fall of 2023 was the bottom for number of units sold. I think it's only going to go up from here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that 8% once we touched in October really gave us that, like, ooh, we don't want to be here as far as, everybody in the economy, services, all around, just, this was not a good territory for people. But it dropped shortly, and we had some good momentum to end the year, finishing off December. But since the start of the year, it's been pretty flat, pretty quiet, not too much information. I believe last week, inflation came a little bit higher than we would have wanted it to after coming off a few months of, good signs. But, then again, it goes back to, hey, we see positive and people do the exact opposite and say everything's good, which is, expected. But at the same time, I feel that, we've been saying this, hey, once there's a drop in rates, don't be too confident to say, hey, we're out of the woods yet, because we're still measuring and seeing what's working, what's not, because, hey, we don't want to raise too high, break the economy, or drop too fast and we go right back to the same problem.
Yeah, and the thing about, and I've said this on Monday Mortgage Minute, I don't even know how many times I've said this now, but October of 2023, that was like your hand on the stove and your body reacts. Ooh, I don't like that. 8%, whoa. And it was like this really quick retreat. And look, I'm not trying to be over dramatic about it and theatrical, but the point is that 8% was not digestible by like anyone in the market. And you saw the 10-year yield. Again, Monday Mortgage Minute, you got to pay attention. When we talk about these kinds of things, the 30-year mortgage the fixed 30-year mortgage rate and the 10-year yield, they run the course together. Even though they're not directly they're not directly connected, they do run the same path most frequently. And that 10-year yield started dropping in November and December, and
we were under 4%, and now
it was almost at 5, right? It touched 5, and then it went away,
yes.
just like we touched rates and at 8, and they went away.
We dropped to sub 4 for a little bit. I'm like, okay, great. We haven't been here in these levels for a while. But then slowly now we're creeping back up into the 4+.
Yeah, I think it likes 4%. I think it likes 4.25 based on what it's seeing in a variety of other economic metrics. Some that are tangible, some that are intangible. I mean, you could even you want to put like gas on the fire. You can talk about geopolitics if you want, but like the truth is, I think 4%, 4.25 is where the 10-year yield likes to be, which means we're probably going to see 6% in mortgage rates, 6 to 7 throughout the year, plus or minus at 0.25%. That's a super wide range. But here's the thing: a lot of that I'm saying is because of your credit, your loan to value limit, loan to value ratio, all that kind of stuff. But here's the point. No, October of 2023, I think, is going to be we're going to look back in the rearview mirror in 6, 12, 18 months and go, yeah, that was when we had the peak in mortgage rates in this little window of time. And we saw the least amount of volume of units sold in this window of time. And that November, December were kind of like this little kind of cusp and this like this upswing. And we're going to see more people coming up in the spring and summer of 24 that are going to be listing their house. And we'll see a lot more pending sales.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I mean, we're already starting to see it just in the first couple of weeks of the year. Fresh inventory is rolling out, and a lot of people are coming out of the woodworks. Now, one thing that I did catch here was that mortgage rates are now solidly in the mid 6% range, but supply from homes for sale is still very low. Builders are ramping up production, but new homes come at a price premium, and that's very true. Existing houses are still rising up in price as well. So, I mean, again, it goes back to the affordability. Great rates are coming down, and that's amazing. We here in the mortgage space love that. But it isn't always a positive thing as a whole for everybody in the economy, because then people start to come out and start, getting into the market, and then the prices of the houses that are there that aren't enough for the people demand go right back up. Yeah. So I think I feel that there's pockets in the market. There's going to be pockets where people are in, pockets where people cool off, and that's why you have to be in 2024 if you want to, take a jump in the market. Be prepared, test the waters out, get pre-approved, see where you're at, run your numbers. You don't have to do anything, but at least you have a sense of direction of where you're at. Study the market, be patient, look out for those opportunities, but be ready. Because if you try to jump when you're not ready, then you're already losing time. An approval could last a week. I mean, an approval could take a week, and in that week, that property is already gone. Unless if you were already ready, boom, hey, updated my pre-approval letter, boom, let's go. So I think being prepared and understanding how to navigate this upcoming market based on what we learned last year is going to be a huge eye-opener for people that understand what was happening last year and how they can navigate this year.
Well, and I think, you talked a lot in 2023, you used the term golden handcuffs, like
Yes.
probably as your like coined term of the year.
How many times did I say golden handcuffs on that?
Summarize Brian's 2023, golden handcuffs.
Holy cow.
But it's actually an important, it's important to say that because it's easy nomenclature to be like, hey, these people have 2%, 2.5%, 3%, even 3.5%. Look, life situations and circumstances will cause some of these people to sell their homes, even if they don't want to mathematically.
Yeah.
Even if financially it seems unfavorable to sell a house that has a 3% rate. And okay, well, now I'm a buyer. All of a sudden after I sell, sounds like a math problem, right? But again, look, there's people are making decisions because their quality of life, where they got to move, where their kids are going, what age and stage they're in, what other kind of other compensating factors they're adjusting to. Again, I'm doubling down. I think that October, November of 23 are going to be like this, the gutter, if you will, of pending home sales. We're only going to see more sales.
I agree. And just, I was at the grocery store and I saw two older gentlemen, they looked like they were probably like, getting ready to retire.
Why'd you point at me when you said that? You were like, look, ready to retire. I would love to retire.
No, I'm making a point. Like, I know, I'm using my hand.
Like, hey, this guy over here.
Hey, if the shoe fits.
He's been bald for 20 years.
I love when you said that. I hear you play. I've been bald forever.
I've been bald forever. Sorry.
No, but anyways, so they were talking. And they're like, yeah, so we don't know what we want to do. My wife's going to retire at the end of the year, this and that. And we're looking to sell the house.
Yeah.
So, it occurred to me that a lot of that's going to be happening as well. People that are, getting ready to just be done. Kids are out of the house. They live in this probably huge house for no reason. They probably got built up equity for years.
Yeah.
And now they're getting ready to retire, so they don't need to be here anymore. They could go to wherever they want or literally live their life however they want.
My parents did that.
They went to Florida.
My parents went to Nevada. My in-laws went to Florida. So there's two homes at this table. There's already two sales.
And if you understand how San Diego market works, there's a lot of people here that, are going to be wanting to leave the market. They don't want to be part of San Diego. They don't want to be, what's happening in California, whatever that reason might be. But it's going to prompt a lot of people that are, exiting their workforce lifestyle into the retirement years. And maybe for them, San Diego isn't the place where they want to lose all their retirement money.
Yeah.
No, or however you see it, however you want to flip the coin. I think that's going to be a huge influence as well as we go into 2024 with a lot of people saying, hey, I'm going to list and leave.
Yeah, and I want to back that up with this part from the article because they're saying regionally that pending sales rose 4.2% in the West.
Yes.
So we are west. The ocean's a couple miles that way.
It couldn't be any more west.
And so a 4.2% gain in the West during a time when the bottom was probably already locked in. So the bottom was October, and they still had a 4.2% gain of pending sales. I mean, that means there's more units coming.
And we still have a lot of people that are just going to leave California because they just don't like what's happening, and that's okay as well because it's only going to open up more inventory. Nobody's going to want to do anything with California, and that's all going to happen going into election year. The more that we see things coming out, the more that people aren't going to like how things are going to be going. All this, I feel, is going to be a perfect storm for a lot of opportunities.
Yep. And so I'm gonna quote a friend of mine, Miguel Contreras. He's been saying this for years. He goes, people move for a lot of reasons. I think he calls it the 4 Ds: death, debt, divorce, and decisions. Just hey, look, I don't want to be here anymore. Sometimes that's just the decision.
And there's a lot of people in California that are sadly feeling that way.
Yeah, and it
Can't blame them.
It could be a debt issue. It could be, hey, my fixed income into retirement is going to be it's not going to be enough that I can't stay here, my spouse died, or we're divorced. Like, look, there's these reasons.
I was following up with the clients from last year, and one of the calls that I made to one of my clients last year, they had great income. They work at a import company for cars. So I called him today. And he's like, hey, I'm like, hey, how you doing, man? Rates came down. I know last time that was an obstacle for us, and it really made the payment a little bit higher. Hey, rates are down. He's like, hey, I am interested, but work has slowed down.
Ooh.
On the other hand, I have contractors, that are my clients as well, and then I talk to them. Hey, I'm coming off my best year.
Yeah.
So
it depends on who you talk to.
It really depends on who you talk to, and that's why I say, like, hey, literally test the waters because you don't know in what position you are that can actually be beneficial to you more than where you're at right now.
Yeah. And so I think cyclically we're going to see that there's going to be more home prices, not home prices, more homes coming onto the market in 2024. I think the spring is really going to be a big push for pending sales.
And then, just to drop this information right here, do it as what you will. The beginning month is going to be a good pocket for those that, want to, get a good deal because we don't know how the market's going to perform yet. Once spring comes, we're going to have enough data for 3 months to know exactly what direction the market's going to move. Right now, it's kind of like, hey, let's test the water. Let's try some offers. Let's try this because you might get the deal in your favor.
Yeah.
People are rolling over from listings from last year that didn't sell that are very motivated to be able to give, a good deal, which is something that we're going to get into.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because this is all backward-looking data. Yeah. So, you're hearing us talk about this. It's the middle of January. This is looking at October, November. Yes, it's all backward-looking data. All our predictive data are opinions all the time.
Look at it like, how do I say it? But I'm glad we put the information down in our description so that you could go read it for yourself, interpret it however you want. Because, again, these are our opinions, how we see things from our point of view in our space that we're at. So, by all means, please, I love when people come up and say, like, hey, what about this, and that? Like, please test us. Like, we want to have the conversation. This is exactly what we do this for.
Yeah, I pitched a question in the comments just last week asking somebody to elaborate on their point because I didn't understand what they were trying to say. It was clearly written. That wasn't the issue. The issue was that in certain areas, you can't do what they were suggesting. So I was like, tell me something maybe I don't know. And so I'm hoping that we get a positive response to that.
Yeah, and just always pay attention to your hyper market, like your hyper local market, because what's happening nationally doesn't always fit the case of where you're at. So, like,
even if we're talking about national
even
stuff.
if we're talking about national, please just double check with your realtor or a trusted real estate professional in your area so they could give you information related to your market.
All right, this is coming in from Altos Research, one of our favorite sources when it comes to housing data and mortgage-related information, posted by Housing Wire. The housing market finishes strong in 2023. The last week of 2023 data for the U.S. real estate market is in, and it may surprise you, but pretty much all the signals for housing in 2024 are pointing to growth already. So inventory was steadily increasing. Home prices were inching up in a lot of areas. You had home sales volumes also start to increase. Inventory ended higher, and new homes under contract.
2024, the year of more.
But freak out.
2020 more.
2020 more. That's
2020
right.
more.
This is really hard to tell people that have just been screaming from the mountaintop, crashes coming, prices are going to plummet, this and that. Like, it's so hard. I understand the argument, and I want to, like, honestly and candidly admit that I understand what you're referencing, what you're looking at, what you're saying is coming on the horizon, why it's happening. I get your opinion, and I understand exactly why it is you guys say those things, you comment those things. That's between you and us talking about these things.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't even look at this. They're like, I want to buy a house, go buy house.
Exactly.
I need gas, go buy gas. I want burger, go buy burger. And so there's that, like, visceral, natural, I want to go and do this, and people just do no matter what this stuff says. And that's what this is.
And I love it because regardless, like, if somebody wants to buy something, they're going to buy it regardless of what the price is.
Right.
And I think it really just comes down to understanding, like, what you want, how are you going to create a plan to go and get it? Because at the end of the day, everybody's going to want what they want. The price, there's people that buy overpriced brands. Why? Because they want it.
All the time.
So if you tell somebody they can't get it, and the more that you tell them, it's like the more that they want it.
It's like you're pushing them to go get it.
Okay, go get it.
Yeah.
So I also understand the people that
don't want that.
No, I don't want.
You don't want that.
Why?
Don't go buy that. Don't overpay for that.
See, you say you don't want that, and I was already like, what don't I want? I was like, what are you talking about? But to me, I just feel like, those people have been wanting the market to crash forever. And I think it's just, they don't understand what they don't understand at some points. But everything is...
But I still get the argument. There's a layer. There's a thinly veiled layer of that, Brian, where I understand what everyone watching is saying. And I'm not going to go into all the nuanced details of that. No. But I totally get it.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that people that are going to buy a house, get in the market, they know exactly more or less what's happening, right? Good. You're going to go into it because you decided and you took that choice. But now, if you want the market to crash and you're saying this, great, that's fine. Keep waiting. Be patient.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's all you can do, really. I just don't like when people start bringing up stuff and, start, putting their personal feeling on it and bringing examples from the past, because real estate is not a one size fits all.
That's true.
And what happened to you, and I'm sorry if it's a bad, experience, doesn't mean it's going to happen for somebody else. Like we said, there's different circumstances that make people do different things.
Right. Well, and even in this article, I mean, they're talking about how, even though we're talking about home sales, home sale volumes are up and prices are increasing and all that, like it's actually opening up that there's some people that were mathematically out that are now mathematically back in. And that's just a function of the function. And so to your point, and also weaving these two things together, is like some people are mathematically back in, but also that's a function of how we use money and how money works in our system. And some people's argument or criticism or contribution in the comment section is the money's a farce already. The Fed is a farce already. The currency has already been diluted. All this, I totally get it. But in this situation, in this context, people who are qualifying for a loan inside the system, using their credit and their income to purchase a home, are playing the game inside the system's rules. And so they are going to be, mathematically coming back off the fence and back into the game.
That's literally what I wrote down.
Yeah, they're gonna. It's like sending another player on the field. Here they come, and number 12, Brian Landeros, to buy his next.
I'm back.
Yeah.
So no, and that's literally what I wrote. With rates dropping even 1%, that can bring someone back into the market.
100%.
You know what I mean? So and it literally, that's what my call was this week. Like, hey, people that were squeezed out last year, hey, 2%, 1.5% now brings you back in the game and then some.
But it's not just that. It's not just that the rate went down. It's that some people's cost of living adjustment just kicked in January 2024.
So there you
some
go.
people that are getting the 3% COLA or the 5% cost of living adjustment, depending on their career, their work, and industry, they're now having an even more mathematically advantageous position because the prices are lower and their income is increased.
I also feel like, for me, I think a healthy rate environment is going to be between 4 and 6%. And let me tell you why.
Okay.
If we're in those ranges, then I feel that, it makes it so that the competition is healthy enough that it doesn't influence the market to shift one way with prices, and it doesn't make houses drop that much either.
Okay.
So when rates were so stinking low, sellers could sit on their property and wait to see how high someone would be willing to offer.
Yeah.
As more inventory floods the market, there's going to be less increase of prices because now there's going to be more options for people.
Kind of equalizing it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So if we're in a market where 4 to 6%, on the low 4%, some people with, combined dual credit, maybe hitting six figures or just about there, could possibly squeeze in or, make it feasible enough through a good negotiation to be able to get into a house comfortably. I feel that that's going to allow for, all this madness in the market to cool off until we have more inventory come in. And then at that point, you could stabilize rates however you want to do it. But for the meantime, holding between 4 to 6%, and even 4% might, cause a little bit of a mayhem. But I think those are going to be the ranges. And I don't believe us ever seeing 3% ever again unless something drastic happens. Because look at all the repercussions that we're now dealing with.
Right.
And not just
because this is now the test. And we are in the second half of the test.
And then not just in the economy, but in the way that people's, habits are, the way that they move, the way that they are, the way that they spend money, the way that they save, the way that they look at things. Everything changed so much that the buyer almost has a different mentality. So we have to get used to what the new norm is.
That behavior has changed, and even just generation by generation, you're having a new generation of buyers come into the market or looking to get into the market that we're going to get to when we close the show later. And this thing, there's two things that stood out to me in this article, and it's in line with what you're talking about. Number one was this: we had 51 weeks, 51 out of 52, 51 weeks of 2023 with fewer sales than in 2022. So if you are having 51 out of 52 weeks with fewer sales than the prior year, and you're ending the year with inventory being higher and more new homes under contract, that means that 2022 you now will be almost 100% lock as the bottom for number of units sold. Now, the other thing that I want to point out goes with this is at the very end, none of the indicators are pointing to down for home prices. Don't listen to me. Listen to Altos Research. If you're mad at me for reading Altos Research, also please make a comment in their videos.
Hey, it's only fair.
It's only
Spread the love, or hey, however you want to.
Yeah, be a good sharer of your criticism on Altos Research.
If you're going to opinionate everywhere.
Look, I like Altos Research. We started using them in 2023 for our own in-person or interpersonal data, but we also reference them a lot because of Housing Wire and other news sources that we use for housing and mortgage related information. And their data solid. So, like CoreLogic, I love CoreLogic. They give great solid data, and it's hard to run from that because behind all this data are people that made choices, and behind those choices are decisions and behaviors that drive those decisions. So these are people taking action.
Go there.
These people are taking action on what they want for whatever the reason is, or for whatever life situation that's upon them, that they're doing or not doing certain things. And all these numbers are derived from that. Now, if all these numbers are a lie, fine, that's a different conversation with Andy. But if they are true and that all these are closings and they're on public record, then we can't sit here and argue about whether it's true or not. We have to talk about what's it mean.
And that's why I feel like it's, it's black or white. You see the data, you see past data, you see what's happening. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball. But if you have some sort of logic, you can follow the pattern of what's happening.
These tell you things. Inventory's up. Home prices are inching up. Volumes of sales are going up.
No, it's going to crash.
New homes are under contract.
No, it's going to crash.
And price reductions are now in a normal range. We didn't talk about that part.
So
price reductions are in a normal range.
From a boot on the ground's point of view, we're starting to see offers get accepted at asking price, or offers get accepted under asking price. Why? Because the sellers are like, hey, now I can't get greedy in an environment where, it doesn't suit. Rates aren't so low that nobody cares about the price anymore.
Right.
People are double checking how much that monthly is. They're going to check how much each dollar is going to whatever they're paying. And if it doesn't make sense, they're not going to buy.
Right.
So for sellers that are, trying to sell for top dollar that should have sold 2 years ago, hey, now you're in the wrong market. You have to get used to what's happening. And
I like that they use the word normal because it establishes that there's a standard.
Yes.
And the standard for price reductions that they call normal is between 30 and 35% of the homes on the market. Now, some people would go, oh my God, 10% of the homes on the market took a price cut? By the way, price cut could be $10. That still qualifies as a price cut.
Price improvements.
It's not like, a price reduction has to be more than 1% of the sale price. No. Reduction.
It could be whatever it was.
A reduction of an even out.
Yeah.
So for me to know that normal is 30 to 35% of homes on the market, that a third, that's a lot still. Like numerically, just volume-wise of units,
Math.
that's still a lot. But here's the thing, and here's what I'm going to say. Because it is also a third of the homes, and we did not see a crash or plummet in prices, that also tells you something. Because if you have a third of the homes that had price reductions and prices didn't slide off a cliff, then that means that this normal range of price reduction has now settled us in home price as well. That's my argument.
Ooh.
Next topic.
Oh, Jesus. I have nothing to say to that. Next topic.
Last article of the day, everybody. What makes Gen Z home buyers different? Coming in from Housing Wire. This is written by a Gen Z editor.
Hey, why are you pointing at me? I'm a millennial.
I'm pointing at you because I hear the words. I hear the Gen Z language because you're trying to be younger than you are.
Did he just throw an age joke at me?
I did. I think Gen Z cuts off at 26 and you're 20.
Oh, no.
How old are
29.
You? You're 20. Okay, yeah. So okay.
Damn, all right, Andy. Cool.
Millennials.
1-1.
Millennials, facts, no cap. Okay.
Ooh.
So,
all right.
So obviously Gen Z is facing some difficulties.
All right, look, bro. This is the thing.
Just kidding. I just want to let that sit in, Gen Z. If there's any of you watching, we all can see them. But I'm not trying to bait anybody. Here's the deal. This article is about how to reach Gen Z buyers and why it's important to do certain things. So there's 3 main points, Brian, and let's talk about each of them in order, okay?
Yes.
If we can.
Yes.
So first of all, millennials and Gen Z are going to be our next home buyers.
Yes.
But they're uniquely different in some ways.
Oh, 100%.
So first of all, technology is second nature, number 1. To number 2, savings present an opportunity for investment. It doesn't say opportunity for occupying. And relies on referrals from friends and social media. Let's go in order, please. Okay. I know you're super excited because this is also a character trait of millennials. Okay, ready? And number 1.
Hey, I think this was set up. He knew it was only us two. He knew it was only going to be us two, so he could take jabs at me.
It's 100%.
I love this.
100% setup article. So, Brian, let's talk about technology being second nature for Gen Z. Go.
So, I mean, just to begin, they grew up with social media more than millennials, right? So they were already embedded when it was already in its prime and in motion. That's one thing. They don't go to big corporations or big medias to get information. So I think for us, the technology point of view is that we can already go and see what we want and make so much more guided research based on all the tools that they have, that once they really come to the table of wanting, they already have an idea. They don't have to be sold. That's one thing that I've noticed about Gen Z. They're really, really by their views, and they don't really care about anybody's external point of views. only if it coincides with theirs. Not everyone, but just in general, right? One of the biggest problems I see is that people can't connect with Gen Z because they don't speak their frequency. So it's like you're trying to connect with someone like this, but you're never going to. You have to meet them where they're at and understand what it is they really want.
You're talking about frequency or word choice?
Word choice.
So I was asking that like honestly because the word choice is very distinct. But you're talking about frequency. That's kind of like this vibe check.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
are you literally meaning like their vibe?
The
like we just
vibe,
don't vibe together,
that's literally
or
it.
I don't use the word vibe.
So it could be that's the thing. It could be a combination of both. Like, hey, this guy's using vibe, but his vibe's really not there. You know what I mean? Like, wow. And that's how crazy Gen Z is.
You know what? This topic is a vibe.
See what I mean? That's so ungenuine.
Church. Okay.
Anyways, yeah.
So these are screen kids.
Kids. They grew up with Apple iPads, and they know how to work them from the day that they come out of the womb, bro.
Yeah. So technology being second nature is a big deal because technology in mortgage and real estate is obviously a topic. AI is a massive topic in mortgage and real estate right now, and big industry, whether they like them or not, whether Gen Z likes them or not, big industry is also accelerating in that direction, going that direction, and kind of like dragging everyone along with it. So I think that this is going to be advantageous for people who are your age and younger. I'll say your age being millennials, right?
I get it.
You know your age of through their early to mid 30s and younger. This is going to be really helpful because you already trust the ways in which you communicate that you are most competent in and most frequently using. So the ability for you to exchange trust with someone in DMs and comments actually builds trust.
Best way.
Yes.
Which
and that's different though for guys like me and guys like Memo, who's even older than me. That's way different.
No one's safe today.
How do his clients interact with him? They come in, don't they?
Yeah.
What do they text him and fax it? They call him still.
Yes.
They still call. They want to talk. Let's meet. Let's get together. It's a different vibe.
Completely on point. Facts.
Okay, so go ahead. No, you have something on that section.
Yeah. So for me, and it's a huge piece of nugget to anybody listening to this that's selling real estate. But one of the biggest things is that industry seasoned professionals try to sell the same way that they sold years ago. At least for the most part, right? But we have to understand that these people don't understand the same terms. They don't speak the same language as you. Therefore, there's a huge disconnection between the real estate and then the Gen Zs, which then leads to this note that I wrote down here. Gen Z is really about influence. And they grew up in an influence era where everybody that they follow or respect or seek advice from is some sort of influencer in some sort of niche. And I think that's more or less how Gen Z starts to go into, real estate, where they go into the social media space to see who it is that they can connect with, that similarly has values like them, that understands what they want. And then it brought a huge topic for the second one, which is Gen Z savings present an opportunity for investments, which earlier in a few episodes back, I was talking about how the difference between younger generation and older generations, they look at this more of an investment. How much can I profit from it? And how much can I do this without, changing my lifestyle and the way that I do life? And that just shows right here that Gen Z is looking at this more as a vehicle for freedom in certain ways, rather than a vehicle for, how do I say it, stability, nuclear family. Like that doesn't mean it isn't important to them, but it's just their vibe.
Low key. Right there, you like that? Low key. Read them what I just wrote here. What I just say? Well, I want you to live on the show. What did I just say? Wealth equals
freedom
and
plus, I can't read that.
Flexibility.
Thank you. So and if you notice just the way that they move and how Gen Zs are, they want freedom. They move in their own way. They're very independent to some extent, and they really don't like to combine with people that aren't in their headspace or in their type of like group.
Well, and the point that this article is making is that they probably have some money that they're saving. So if they're working, let's just qualify that as well. If you're working, Gen Z, and you're living at home with your parents rent free, you probably have some money saved up. So the point is, hey, I can create a basket of money, little mattress money or whatever, and then apply that towards something that will return income to myself somehow. And maybe it is an investment. This part of the article doesn't say Gen Z's savings present an opportunity for buying a home for themselves. It says Gen Z savings present an opportunity for investment.
And what does investment do? It helps you get to other places because you want to have that vehicle. And I see, I mean, just with Mikey, with Alex, colleagues, with the people that we work with, I mean, they aren't talking about, hey, I want to buy a house so I can start my family. They're talking about, hey, how can I leverage this, invest in this because I want this lifestyle.
Yep.
Like that's literally the point. What can I do to acquire the lifestyle that I want without having to compromise who I am, what I want to do, and work a job that I don't even like?
And some of these people that are now coming of age,
which is nothing wrong.
No, it's nothing wrong. But I'm saying I'm going to make a behavioral point,
yeah,
and a psychological point. That some of these people that are coming of age that would buy right now, they were born in an era when we did have the housing collapse. Now they were babies, or they were just born, or whatever. Maybe you're 5 years old by the time 2010 or 12 came out, whenever that year was. Maybe you're a couple years old, but your parents were house poor or lost out. How many times we hear people talk about, oh, you don't want to be house poor, you don't want to be house poor, you don't want to be house poor.
There's food at home. Well, can't have McDonald's.
Yeah, but the idea house poor means like everything you work for, all that does is to go to pay for the roof over your head that you're enslaved by at the job you hate or whatever. So this idea of wealth equals freedom and flexibility, I think, is a huge caveat for this, because it means I can go where I want to go when I want to go.
That's
and I don't have to do this thing over here to remain house poor over here. I'm seeing that lifestyle, or I've heard about it, and now I don't want any part of that.
100%.
But I do want in the game, I just don't want to be imprisoned or handcuffed to the consequences of the game.
Bam. It's like,
is that right?
No, that's 100%, because now they're looking at this as, how do I leverage this to get this?
Yeah. Yeah,
like that's literally it.
Yeah, it's a huge behavioral shift, and that it also kind of goes hand in hand with the part you were talking about earlier. Like, we trust each other in the comments, we trust each other in the DMs, we build relationship like that, and we'll help each other on how to both get it. Like, the information sharing that's happening between Gen Z is unreal. Like, you go to Instagram, you're watching Reels, you're watching TikTok, you're watching YouTube, you're doing shorts, whatever you're looking at. There's so much information on how to house hack, how to create wealth, how to have multiple streams of income, how to have passive income, how to work from home, how to influence your way to wealth of the monetary and of the freedom and flexibility type.
And never before in life has that been accessible to a generation this much.
Not like this.
They're not like they can literally pick up a phone, search up whatever there is, and get a gist of what they need to do to get that job, that business, or that investment going.
So check this out. When I was like your age, okay, like a long time ago, when I was like your age, if someone said, oh yeah, I make $1 million and I work from home, I'd be like, scam. There's no way. But now people are like, oh yeah, I made like $1 million last year doing.
What'd you do? I recorded some videos.
And you're like, hey, where's your tutorial? Like, where's your classes, right? It has shifted. So the behavior has shifted, the opinion has shifted, the perspective of what that means shifted, and that says a lot about why they trust, why Gen Z trusts each other in this space, because they see people having success in this space, not just using the space to sell you something.
Gen Z is the type that they're not going to take advice from somebody that owns a Toyota Corolla. No, not talking about anybody.
Well, unless it's advice about having a car that will run forever.
Exactly. Facts. But they're not going to take advice from somebody that has a Toyota Corolla when they want a Lamborghini, and the Corolla is telling him, hey, don't do this, do this, do this, do that. They're going to be like, no, like, not at all.
That's some like posturing influence stuff. I get that.
Exactly. So my thing is that, and this is more like of an eye opener for anybody in the industry that's listening to this, is understand your demographic and understand where they're at, where they show up to, where they interact, and be able to meet them in that space without having to bring all your I'm going to sell you stuff. Literally just build a relationship with them, and that's going to be your biggest key to connect with someone on social media.
Well, and this is why, having a digital brand is important that we talk about in this article. We talk about referrals from friends and social media, building trust with public figures and relatable individuals in their network when it comes to choosing who they're going to work with. Like, I mean, we should probably do a show and put it on YouTube. That would be a good idea. We're good. We'll do that after the show.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, after the show, we'll start a YouTube channel and we'll
post it.
We'll do shows. We'll do maybe tutorials. We'll do shorts. We'll do clips of the segments, and
we should also bring in people and interview them.
Yeah, friends, friends are. So we'll be called Friends and Mortgage Heroes.
That's so smart. Why don't we think about that,
dude? Let's do it.
Hey, wrap it up. Let's go.
So, look, it's apparent they don't care about brand recognition. There's two main standouts to me. They care. They really lead with authenticity and wanting financial education. I think is really important. Forget that you work in the industry for a second. Like, I'm not gonna pretend like no one in the audience that we're talking to today is in the industry. Okay. Like, one thing you need to know about Gen Z when it comes to their decision making is authenticity is number one, right? And number two, teach me and show me so I can go and repeat that for myself. The educational part is really important. So we might like crack down or crack fun at Gen Z for being lazy, all this other stuff. But hold on, they really care about education.
Cap, no Facts, no cap.
High key.
Facts, no cap.
Facts, no cap.
Facts, no cap.
Low key, dropping Riz on the show.
And honestly, like,
actually, that wasn't Riz. That's not what that is.
The last part of this article states that, yeah, like even myself, whenever I refer somebody to my to like my friends, like all I'm doing is taking their social media and sending it directly. And I'm not sending their website, not sending their number.
No,
I'm literally like, hey, go see their work, check them out, and then figure out if that's something that you want. And I think that's, you know, the direction of everything. Like, I feel influence, referrals is the best way to go about growing your business, building a community. So I think that's only going to grow more as we progress, because now we're starting to see that there isn't that much authenticity out there, that there isn't that much people that are unique. And really those that stand out are the ones that stick true to themselves, believe in their values, and hey, doesn't care what anybody else is doing besides what they are.
And any Gen Z that is a millennial or Gen Z that's watching this part of the show or watch this whole show, like, you can connect with Brian. Drop a comment below, send us a DM or whatever, wherever you're watching this, and connect with us on this thing, because I know we're not just talking to people in sales industry trying to sell to Gen Z. No. It was written by a salesperson who's trying to sell to Gen Z. The reason I brought this up, though, is that people that are Gen Z are going to want these opportunities. You want to invest, you want to buy, maybe you do want to buy a house that you can live in. Yeah. Maybe you do want to buy a duplex and you're going to have your friends live with you, or whatever the case is. I don't really care what the case is. The point is, if you're in that category and you are looking for help and guidance, we're in your space. We are in the digital space. We are building a digital brand. We are available through digital means. We are building public trust with you, and we also bring with it decades of experience that has gone down these paths and roads and these uncertain times ahead of you that you can benefit from and leverage.
So there was somebody in the comments that says, hey, I'm getting into real estate, I'm doing this, and I replied to him like, hey, follow me on social media. I want to see your journey. I want to see you grow. I want to be there to help you in some sort of way, even if you're out of state or some other way. We connect with so many different people that's the name of the game. Like, I just want to be able to connect with more people, see what they're doing. And ultimately, I love when they're telling us, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Good. Grow. Be you. Go out there. This was great.
Yeah, so this is a good show today, Brian. Thank you so much for joining me. What was your favorite part of the show, by the way?
I think bringing in the Gen Z point of view, honestly, it just kept it a little bit more live, you know. And I think that they're very underrated in the sense that, you know, you have to understand, and that's the biggest thing. I feel that they're misunderstood, but in reality, they're just hyper focused on what they really want, and that's it. And if it doesn't fall within that box, like, hey, like, they're not gonna mess with you.
Yeah. Yeah. My favorite part of the show is I really like the solutions going back all the way back to the beginning of the show, talking about like the school districts and municipalities buying houses or looking at housing to restore and refurbish to put people into so they can do quality education in their neighborhoods. I'm not necessarily saying I'm in love with that particular idea and the way that it was structured and framed in the article more than I am that we continue to see creative solutions come into the market that we were predicting was going to happen in 2023 that's carrying over in 2024, and I think is just going to be a facet of mortgage and real estate from here on out, because it is what is revealing itself to be absolutely required to continue allowing people to have housing in order to conduct and do jobs that really matter, that help our neighborhoods. And that was my favorite part of the show today. Great show today. Awesome. I can't wait for next week when we got all of us back together.
Yes.
And we got a surprise for you next week. We will not tell you what it is, but you will see it on the show. Thank you for watching the Mortgage Heroes podcast. We'll see you again next time.
Bye, guys.